الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله ولو آمن أهل الكتاب لكان خيرا لهم منهم المؤمنون وأكثرهم الفاسقون لن يضروكم إلا أذى وإن يقاتلوكم يولوكم الأدبار ثم لا ينصرون ضربت عليهم الذلة أينما ثقفوا إلا بحبل من الله وحبل من الناس وباءوا بغضب من الله وضربت عليهم المسكنة ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون الأنبياء بغير حق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون ليسوا سواء من أهل الكتاب أمة قائمة يتلون آيات الله آناء الليل وهم يسجدون يؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر ويسارعون في الخيرات وأولئك من الصالحين وما يفعلوا من خير فلن يكفروا والله عليم بالمتقين. Last time we were discussing the verse Kuntum khaira ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas, and yet the subject had not exhausted when the time ended. So I'll pick up the thread from where I left last time. First of all, to remind you to read the translation, remind in the sense that most of you perhaps don't understand the translation. So despite the fact I have already read the translation before, in that sense I use the word to remind you of the translation. You are the best people, raised for the good of mankind. You enjoin good and forbid evil, and believe in Allah. And if the people of the book had believed, it would have surely been better for them. Some of them are believers, but most of them are transgressors. They cannot harm you save that they may cause you slight hurt, and if they fight you, they will turn their backs to you. Then they shall not be helped. They shall be smitten with abasement wherever they are found, unless they are protected by a covenant with Allah or by a covenant with men. They have incurred the wrath of Allah and have been smitten with wretchedness. That is because they rejected the signs of Allah and sought to slay the prophets unjustly. That is because they rebelled and used to transgress. They are not all alike. Among the people of the book there is a party who stand by their covenant. They recite the word of Allah in the hours of night and prostrate themselves before Him. They believe in Allah and the last day, and enjoin good and forbid evil, and hasten to vie with one another in good works, and these are among the righteous. And whatever good they do, they shall not be denied its due reward. And Allah well knows those who guard against evil. The discussion was revolving round the issue of تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ, that is to say, they, to you as the best ummah, are involved in the work of admonishing good things and forbidding evil. The discussion was about how to forbid evil, how to prevent people from doing evil. I've already discussed this from the point of view of the Holy Quran, its other verses which are relevant to the subject, and from the point of view of other traditions, that those ulama who believe that this gives them a sanction and license to use force to rectify people's attitude is totally un-Islamic and is not supported by either the Quran or the traditions of the Holy Founder of Islam or by his conduct himself and the conduct of his followers in his time. All these reject this interpretation that here license to use force is being granted to the Muslims. Another issue which is being discussed by various Muslim scholars is the question of why amana, the word amana, has been put in the end of the statement rather than the beginning. Because amana means and they believe, or you, because you are, it's being addressed directly to the Muslims, you believe. They said belief is the beginning of all goodness, and without belief you cannot do anything, and it stands in the order of priority anyway, because elsewhere in the Holy Quran when you read the word amana, it is mentioned before amal-e-salihah. So why there is a deviation here from the established practice of the usage of the Holy Quran and from what we expect it to be. So instead of saying, you are the best people because you have believed and because you admonish others to do good things and prevent them from doing bad things, it is said in the end, and also you believe. Some explanations have been forwarded. Allama Alauddin in Tafsir Khazin suggests that Iman, that is belief in God, is wider in application, and all the ummahs have belief in God, so that is applicable to all. What distinguishes the ummah of Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam is this act of preventing people admonishing people to do good things and forbid them to do evil. Now this does not hold water at all, because according to the Holy Quran itself, there are non-Muslims as well who do the same thing. In fact, if you scan the horizon of humanity as such, you will find that there are such people even among the atheists who do not believe in anything, yet by nature they are good, and by nature they are human and humane. So they have now started, coined a new phrase of belonging to the religion of humanitarianism. So they say we are just human beings, and as such we admonish people to do good deeds and abstain from doing bad things. So they do have no belief, and yet they indulge in such practices. So this could not have been the reason. In fact, the reason is very obvious and opposite to what has been suggested. Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar is a quality which belongs to mankind as such, which knows no distinction between religions and religions. Human beings as such must by their nature admonish people to do good things, and prevent them or forbid them from doing bad things. Now, when you observe the human beings behaving in different societies, in different countries, in different cultures, this is exactly what you find. Always, without fail, even among the worst societies, there are some people who stand out in telling people to do good deeds, and they devote their life for this cause and this purpose. And there is no region in the world which is devoid of such people. No religion in the world where you don't find such people. So, Amana here is to give a compliment to Muhammadiyah, that although there are other things, other people who do the same things to a smaller degree, of course, but they do. What makes you distinctive among them is, or distinct from them, is the fact that you have believed also. And as such, you have found light which they have not found, unfortunately for them. They're still hovering in the dark, and because of the belief in God and because of the Islamic teachings, your concept of evil and good, or bad or good, it has become more dependable. It is truer because it has been enlightened by God's teachings. So this is the main distinction between the Muslims who are being addressed here and those who did not believe in Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Their views on goodness and evil, generally speaking, would be correct, because these two areas are areas of human practices everywhere in the same manner. There is an inner light granted to every human being, which is referred to in the Holy Quran as bayan. Khalaqal insana allamahul bayan. God has created man and has provided him with a quality of distinguishing between things. And here bayan means between dark and light, between good and evil. So there is an innate quality in human beings, which has been referred to in the Holy Quran, in the verse in particular, which I have mentioned, and elsewhere as well, which speaks that God, man, if he refers to himself and delves deeper into his own being, he is provided with the instrumentation of finding out what is wrong and what is right, to distinguish from good from bad. Now, this quality shows itself everywhere in the world in the form of such people as I have mentioned, where this quality of distinguishing between good and evil surfaces in their cases and begins to exercise. But still, there are obscurities, cultural backgrounds, traditional backgrounds, educational background, and so many other things, which obscure this quality somehow. It is dusted. And their conclusion is not always right. Some have a different, distorted concept of goodness, and some have different, distorted concept of evil. So although they do it in good faith, but their concept in itself is obscured to a degree because they have not believed in a God, in a religion which is revealed by God and which is fresh in its education, which has not been interpolated. So this is the difference which gives an edge to the Muslims who believed in the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam over the rest of the people. There are others like them, but not like them exactly. And the difference is marked. They have believed and the others have not, so they have come into direct influence of light, where they are recipient of all the benefits which are concomitant upon believing in truth. So, this is the same subject being discussed in the same verse. You don't have to wait much further to find the proof of that this interpretation is correct. Immediately, the Holy Quran says, وَلَوْ آمَنَ أَهْلُ الْكِتَابِ لَكَانَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. This is in reality the difference between you and the other people of the book. Some of them do good deeds as well as admonish others and all this. Amr bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar is their common practice. But they lack in belief. So, Lo amana ahlul kitab. Oh, wish it had happened so. Law here is the expression which also has a shade of sorrow about it. We wish they had done it. How sad they have not done it. This is the meaning. If they had believed, they would have also shared this quality of being khaira ummat. Minhumul mu'minuna wa aktharuhumul fasiqun. Some among them are mu'mineen, are believers, but most are those who have rejected goodness or rejected the message. This also has become a special subject of discussion. Who are those who are mentioned from among the Ahl Kitab who did believe, and although they are in a minority? Most Muslim commentators interpret it as referring to Abdullah bin Salam and other believers of the time of Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who previously were Jews but accepted the message of Islam and believed in Hazrat sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, according to them, the exception refers to such people. This could as well be right, but this application cannot be limited. In fact, it's a general observation. Potentially also, there are always such people in every faith, and particularly because the Jews are being mentioned, among them there are such people who, though in small minority, but are capable of accepting the truth if the message is properly delivered to them. So, although the direct address could be to a few of the Muslims who had got converted from Judaism, but also all the future such Jews as are capable of accepting Islam are being addressed, and they should be included in this. Also, it is possible that the word amana applies to those Jews who have not heard the message of Islam but who are sincere. And other verses of the Holy Quran also support this view. This is possible because elsewhere it has been clearly mentioned that there are others from among the Ahl Kitab, from among the people of the book, who have sincere faith in what was revealed to them. They are true believers in God, and they also believe in the day of resurrection, and they also believe in the answerability, and they do good deeds. So they could also be referred to here as a minor exception among the people of the book. Hazrat Masih Maud has thrown a completely new light on this verse or derived a completely new light from this verse and explained it to us in a manner as never before him was this verse explained. Hazrat Masih Maud points out to the fact that there are two types of people mentioned in the Holy Quran, Khairul Bariya wa Sharrul Bariya. Those, Bariya means men, Annas. So Khairul Bariya are those who are the very best of the mankind. And Sharrul Bariya are those who are the very worst of mankind. Hazrat Masih Maud has further explained the fact that Dajjal is mentioned as Sharrul Bariya. And Dajjal is in fact a people who would have some excellences in the worldly wise regard, but as far as the guidance of God from Allah is concerned, they will turn a blind eye to it. And as such, they will be the sources of spreading many moral evils in the world, and their influence would be extremely toxic for spiritual life. So that is why they are mentioned as Sharrul Bariya. A bad people with bad influence, of course, can be found everywhere in the world, in every period of history, but not with such large influences, not with such supreme power to conquer the whole world and spread their evils to all the world. So in that respect, they have become the Sharrul Bariya. Hazrat Masih Maud has commented on this verse by pointing out that apart from the accepted meaning that ukhrijat kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, you are the best of the ummah which was ever created for the benefit of mankind, it should also be understood to mean that you are the best of the people sent for the rectification of the worst of the people. Here, Annas would refer to Sharul Bariya. So, pitched against the worst of the people. And therein lies the proof of the Muslims being the best. Those who have been created to rectify the worst evil that was ever to befall mankind, obviously they are the greatest people. Because if you cure a small ill, you have entitlement to be called a sort of physician. But if you cure all ills, and the worst among them, cancer and rabies and this and that, then of course you stand out among the physicians as the very best. So Hazrat Masih Maud has pointed out that therein lies the proof, because although there were other people sent for the sake of people, and you can't deny that, all the prophets created such ummahs as were created for the sake of people. But they never were confronted by evil of such large magnitude as would encompass the entire earth. And such evil encompassing the entire earth, demanding a people who were also sent for the whole mankind, a religion which encompassed the entire universe, and as such, who would reach them wherever they are, would follow them and rectify the evils and confront the evil. So in this sense, this verse is for the first time understood by Hazrat Masih Maud under light and guidance from God to mean that Annas here are Dajjal, the Antichrist, and Khaira Ummat is followers of Islam. Again, the following verse should be interpreted in the light of this. If Dajjal are mentioned, then why should there not be a reference to Dajjal and suddenly the Holy Quran should start speaking of Ahle Kitab? This means Dajjal has to be from among them. This is the latter period of Ahle Kitab which is being mentioned. And it is said that although you will be confronted, but instead of continuously rejecting the message and offering yourself to be recipient of God's wrath, it would be much better if you submit and accept the message of Islam and believe in this Prophet. Therein lies your falah or redemption. And if you reject it, then what is destined for you is bound to follow. Here, because they are mentioned as Dajjal, I must explain this further, because sometimes some Ahmadis commit rather too strongly. And the result is that the people who are addressed by them, instead of coming closer to Islam, they are in fact rather pushed away, because they think that according to them we are the Dajjal and they are the right people and this and that. This is exactly the attitude of some non-Ahmadi Muslims when you tell them that we have believed in Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad and therefore we have a right to address you and try to improve your quality. This is, so you think we are the hellish people and you are the righteous people, so to hell with you, that sort of thing. This is the attitude also adopted by some Christian scholars, particularly a scholar from University of London who visited Sierra Leone and other places, Professor, his name has just slipped my memory, but it will come. He also came to meet me. He has written some articles on Ahmadiyya. And there he mentions that these people, they are most dangerous things for Christianity. Because during his visits to Africa and discussions with some missionaries, they pointedly told me that you are the Dajjal. You see, the Antichrist. How could I tolerate this nonsense and that sort of thing? So you should use hikmah, common sense, in trying to explain these things. Hazrat Masih Maud has put it in most beautiful words as the briefest expression of truth. He said, God has sent me to break the cross which broke the bones of Jesus Christ. You see, he is not opposed to Jesus Christ, he is opposed to cross. And those who worship cross, they are not the friends of Jesus Christ, they are his enemies. As such, they are antichrist. Once a Christian couple came to meet me, and I suddenly asked them, why do you love cross so much? And the lady was rather astounded. She was more Christian than her friend. I said, what do you mean? Cross, of course. We love cross because it is related to Jesus Christ. I said, but in what way? As a friend or as an enemy? Cross was the enemy of Jesus Christ. Can you ever conceive a situation where somebody murders your dear ones, or your father, or anybody very closely related to you, and you get the weapon of murder in your hand, and from then on you go on kissing and loving the weapon of murder and embracing it close to your heart and saying, this is something, I must worship. It murdered my dear one. I said, what nonsense. So she said that, look here, please, for the first time, that this new angle has been presented to me. Right from my childhood, I was told to love cross and worship cross, and I never thought of it, that this is the enemy of Jesus Christ. Why should we love that enemy? And so I will think it over. So I hope she has by now thought it over and understood the message. But Hazrat Masih Maud has put it so briefly and so concisely and so beautifully by pointing out that I have come to break that cross which broke the bones of Jesus Christ. So those who love the enemy of Jesus Christ, how could they be true Christians? They are bound to be antichrist. And those who love Jesus Christ, they hate that cross which not only hurt his body but also his faith. A monotheist, totally devoted to the worship of God and purely devoted to the worship of God, is through, again, the agency of this enemy, is being worshipped as Son of God. So cross is the first enemy and the prime enemy. And as such, we confront not Christians, but this enemy of Christianity and this enemy of Jesus Christ. That is why Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in nutshell, always referred to cross as something which is bound to be broken by the Messiah himself. That is to say, somebody in his image would come and would start the movement which ultimately would break the cross into two, will break its backbone. So this is also the meaning which you should remember, that Hazrat Masih Maud is the only one in the world of Islam who was enlightened by God in this regard, in this respect. So Annas here are Ad-Dajjal, and Dajjal in the sense they have, because they have destroyed the true image of Jesus Christ, and because they have destroyed the true message of Jesus Christ, so we claim not to be the enemies of Christianity or enemy of Jesus, peace be upon him, but we claim to be greater friends and greater followers of Jesus, and greater friends and greater followers of Christianity in its purity. This is the attitude which we should adopt. And this is exactly the correct attitude. Again, there are other discussions on this issue. Now, according to some, as is pointed out, some said Iman, faith, is common among Muslims and all others, and the two things, Amr bil Maruf and Nahy anil Munkar, are the distinctive features. Imam Razi and some others reject this view, as I have already rejected, but I have pointed out to something which has not been pointed out by them earlier. They took a different view. They said they are three things together, and they make the distinction all put together. Of course, they're all together, but the question being discussed was, why was Iman mentioned in the end rather than in the beginning? Here, Imam Razi points out that Qifal hai naam? Yes. Qafal is one of the commentators. He has taken the view that the distinction of the Muslims, as mentioned here in this verse, is that the Muslims believe in force, in the employment of force in rectifying other people, and the others do not believe in such things. So this is the grand distinction of Islam, that for the first time in the history of religion, it gives permit to its followers to forcibly correct others and to use sword to spread the message of Islam. Now, these are the people who have provided the enemies of Islam with such potent weapons which injure the face of Islam and in fact render it so unacceptable to the modern world that they can't think of a religion which uses force or believes in force to be used in the spread of its message. And there, when you read it, you will be surprised to find that others also have joined forces with him, like Mufti Muhammad Shafi of modern times, Awqadwa, Mufti Muhammad Shafi Awqadwi, and they exult in this loudly by pointing out, look here, this is Islam. All other religions fail to understand the beauty of use of force, while Islam has taught us that go ahead and use sword to destroy your enemy and to spread the message of Islam and to prevent people forcibly from doing bad things. They have forgotten one thing, that according to the Holy Quran, although according to them earlier religions missed this point, I believe they did miss this point, no doubt about it. But according to the Holy Quran, the enemies of prophets did not miss this point. So if it is a beautiful point, this was always adhered to and well understood by all the enemies of prophets. Because when you read the history of the prophets from the Holy Quran, you will be surprised to find that wherever the enemies of truth are mentioned, they are presented as believers in use of force to change ideas, without fail, without exception. So if it is a beautiful idea, which was given only to Islam as a faith, then Islam does not stand alone in this beautiful idea. Islam, unfortunately, then has to be bracketed with all the enemies of truth, who, according to the Holy Quran, according to this unrejectable testimony of the Holy Quran, always, without fail, invariably, preached this idea to others, that we are, as powerful people, have a right to destroy the opposite views by force and make them understand what truth is. So these people who refer to this verse as giving them license to use force totally destroy the image of Islam in view of the Islamic history of religion itself. There, Islam no longer belongs to the people of truth, but it belongs to the people who always oppose truth. So the greatest cruelty, the greatest disservice that could be done to Islam has been done by these scholars who believe in such things. Moreover, when you follow the Quran, follow this verse by the verse, when you read the verse which follows this verse, then you're surprised to find a completely different image emerging, which would not permit you to interpret this verse wrongly. Holy Quran has the capability of defending itself. So you can't attribute to it a wrong idea without another verse coming to confront you and rightly protecting the true meaning of the Holy Quran. So no verse of the Holy Quran is single. It is always found in doubles and trebles, where other verses come to the support of a verse which has been maltreated and misunderstood. The verse following says, لَن يُزُرُّكُمْ إِلَّا أَذَى. They are using force, not you. But don't fear. When you start speaking of good things and admonishing righteousness, and when you start talking of preventing people from bad things, it is not you who are going to use force. It is your enemies whom you address, who will begin to hurt you then. لَن يَضُرُّكُمْ إِلَّا أَذًى, but we assure you that they will only hurt you superficially. They will not be able to suppress your message with force. So immediately force is relegated and attributed to the other side, not to those who admonish others. وَإِن يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ, it doesn't say that you start war against them. It says, إِن يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ, if they pick up fight with you and they attack you, يَوَلُّوكُمُ الْأَدْبَارَ ثُمَّ لَا يُنْصَرُونَ, they will turn their backs upon you, they will be defeated and routed, and there would be no one who would help them. So the picture painted here is not of Muslims initiating a war in performance of their duty of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar, but as they do it, according to the Holy Quran, the opposition would start using force, and when they do it, they should not be afraid of them, then God will help them. ضربت عليهم الذلة أينما ثقفوا إلا بحبل من الله وحبل من الناس وباءوا بغضب من الله وضربت عليهم المسكنة ذلك بأنهم كانوا يكفرون بآيات الله ويقتلون الأنبياء بغير حق ذلك بما عصوا وكانوا يعتدون. They shall be smitten with abasement wherever they are found. Again, this verse has been unfortunately distorted out of shape by a misinterpretation of the same altitude. They say that this further speaks of you are going into an all-out physical war against these people. ضُرِبَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ الذِّلَّةُ أَيْنَمَا ثُقِفُوا is interpreted by some commentators as your enemies, when you raise your sword against them, would meet with total annihilation and they will be completely destroyed. إِلَّا بِحَبْلٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَحَبْلٍ مِّنَ النَّاسِ, except for a covenant with God and a covenant with people, or the rope of God and the rope of people. So this has created so many confusions. If this interpretation is correct, that Duribat alayhim Abdullah means they will be routed at your hands and destroyed, then what does it mean? Illa bihabli min Allah wa habli min an-nas. What is that exception? So I will take this issue up as has been taken earlier by various scholars, and after reading some of their opinions, then I'll explain the verse in its true perspective. Yes, one thing I must mention here is Tafsir Ibn Arabi. As you know already, Hazrat Ibn Arabi was a Sufi saint in Islam, who was Sufi in the sense that he delved much deeper into the meanings of the Quran and the Hadith than the ordinary scholars of his age. And he expressed some of his opinions critically. So as such, he is mentioned as one of the greatest Sufis ever born in Islam. But because he was a very pious man, not only a scholar, but extremely holy person, so there you find a very distinctive light in him, which is found elsewhere as well, ordinarily, but not with such brilliance as in the case of Hazrat Ibn Arabi. Commenting on this verse, he does not even remotely mention the use of force. On the contrary, he says, तुम सबसे बेहतर उम्मत हो बवजह तौहीद परस्त होने और अदल पर कायम होने के, क्योंकि अदल खुदा का साया है. You stand out among all the people because you stick to absolute values of justice. What a beautiful comment it is. It leaves no room for any interpretation which would have us believe that license to use force is granted here in this verse. Adl does not side with any religion or any people or any race. Adl belongs to God, to whom everything is just equal when the dispensation of justice comes. So Adl is balance, where the rights are equal, have to be equal. So how could it be possible that this verse should speak of Adl and grant Muslims a right bigger than their opponents and so different from the rights given to other people in the world? Now look at this concept of use of force and relate it to their concept of qatl-e-murtad. Those who apostate, become apostate and change their faith, renounce Islam, what should be the treatment according to Islam? This one and the same thing. The concept of use of force and spread of message and concept of stopping people from changing their faith is virtually the same thing. Now this concept is so heinous and ugly and based on such injustice that it is unbelievable that a religion like Islam, which lays such strong emphasis on total and absolute justice, should be interpreted so crookedly by some followers of the same religion. You see, it means that according to Islam, Muslims have every right to change the faith of the people everywhere in the world by the spread of message, or if they have power enough, strength enough, by killing people who refuse to accept the message, and by putting them to sword because they fail to understand. Islam gives this right to all, to Muslims everywhere in the world. And Islam takes away the right of every other faith to treat those among them who accept Islam and renounce their religion. So what sort of adl that would be? That according to God, Islam has got the distinctive right of forcing people's views, and no other religion has a right to force the views of Muslims. If they convert a Muslim into a Christian, he would be murdered. If Muslims convert a Christian into Islam, into a Muslim, they have no right to murder such a person. What sort of justice that would be? So Hazrat Ibn Arabi has pointed out to some fundamental basic feature of Islam which rejects all such attempts and frustrates all such attempts, as would misinterpret this verse, by pointing out that this here, the distinction belongs to Islam being the most just religion, most equitable religion. And he refers to another verse of the Holy Quran which speaks, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا. Look here, we have created you a people who situate right in the middle. And this, according to Ibn Arabi, has also been translated and interpreted by other great scholars as absolute justice. Ummatan wasatan means a people who are founded on absolute justice. So any interpretation of the Holy Quran which is against the concept of absolute justice must be rejected outright without any hesitation, because that meaning could not have belonged to the Quran and it has no right to be there. The Holy Quran says, وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَانُ قَوْمٍ مذہبی لحاظ سے अनसद्दुकुम अलैहि एक और भी जगह है मजहबी दुश्मनी की वजह से. There is a verse of the Holy Quran which says, this also belongs to the same region, that even if there are people who have been your enemy in religion and who have been wrongly treating you because of religious differences, when you come to power to dispense affairs, then we admonish you always stick to absolute justice. And the memory that they have been wronging you because of the difference of faith must never permit you to incline towards injustice. This is the absolute teaching of Islam. So any translation or interpretation of the Holy Quran which is contradictory to this fundamental must always be rejected and rejected outrightly. So here we find Reverend E.M. Wary again, whose hands are so fully strengthened by such commentators as I have mentioned, and there you find him saying, I think this is the wrong excerpt. Well, I have already read out that excerpt from him, which basing on these statements of the Holy Quran and the commentary of some Muslim scholars, exults from the fact that this is Islam, which believes in the spread of message and changing the ideas of the people with the help of sword, and this is totally rejectable to sinner section of humanity. He also, referring to that exception, points out, according to some Muslim scholars, where an exception is mentioned in case of Jews who believed, the reference was to Abdullah ibn Salam and his companions and those of the tribes of Al-Aus and Al-Khadraj who had embraced Muhammadanism. Now, Durabat Alhamdulillah, this is the verse which we are now discussing. Tafsir Razi, Tafsir Kabir Imam Razi. He says that this means this verse should be taken as a prophecy as well as a statement applicable to the time when this verse was revealed. According to Imam Razi, they are going to start a war against Muslims. So the initiation of war would lie with them. The Muslims would not initiate the war. According to this prophecy, they would initiate the war. So this is exactly as we understand this verse to be. There is no permission for Muslims to start a war against those who disagree with their faith. It is the others who are going to do it. But he says it also applied to the situation as prevailing at the time of the revelation of this verse, because it said that already they are in a state of helplessness and abasement, zillah. He said the Jews at that time, when this verse was revealed, had already become meaningless and abased, and all their efforts to destroy Islam had been frustrated. But also he mentions that some scholars interpret it as a license to start war against others. And according to Imam Razi, again, this is surprising. I think something must have happened, because normally he adopts a very correct and sensible attitude. Here he says that this view seems to be the very best and well supported. So aqwa here may have been the word aqwa used here means the most strongly supported view. Normally people interpret this as Imam Razi's preference of this view over others. If this is the case, then it's very surprising, because normally Imam Razi is not a scholar of that caliber who would side with weaker views. He is very enlightened and clear. But aqwa could also mean that among the scholars, this is the most strongly held view. In that case, it would not be Imam Razi's view, but the strongest view has prevailed among the scholars in Islam at that time. And the view is that this is a license for Muslims to do these things, to start war against them, to rob them of all their properties, to arrest their children, and to occupy their lands and appropriate them forever. Imagine what the Holy Quran says is simply this: Duribat alayhimud dhilla aynama suqifu. They have been stricken with abasement wherever they are. Of course, the reference is to God. But the translation or interpretation of this verse is as crooked as I have just read out. Now the question arises, if this is so, if this interpretation is correct, then how would you understand the word habl and hablullah and hablun nas? What does it mean? Imam Razi immediately raises this question and says, in the view of this, the word hablullah doesn't become comprehensible, because if this is the true meaning, then there should be no exception whatsoever. How could there would be some Jews who would be saved from our excesses by hablullah? Which hablullah? We are holding hablullah, not they. So what does it mean? And what is hablun nas then? Because Anama Sukhifu presents a picture of their total annihilation everywhere in the world. Yet the Holy Quran makes an exception by pointing out, except with the habl from God, that is a covenant or a rope of God, and a habl from the people. So he remains confused and he is unable to offer any solution. He attempts to offer some solution and say, no, this is not correct, this is not correct, it's not feasible either, and so on, so rejects everything. Because the first interpretation is wrong. When we come to understand it correctly in the true perspective, then everything will fall in order and there won't be any inner contradictions. For instance, he points out, I'll quote from Imam Razi. He said, jizya, that is the tax imposed on non-Muslims, and abasement and insult, they're all things which are not exempted by any habl from God as far as those enemies are concerned which have fallen under your path, under you, who have been defeated by you and you become their rulers. So he said, if this is the meaning, then hablullah is inexplicable. You can't understand what it means. Again, he goes on discussing the absurdities of this view. So there, he might have meant by aqwa, the strongest view held by some scholars, not a view which is in his own view aqwa, that is to say, it's not that he wanted to tell us, he considered this view to be the strongest in his own opinion. Perhaps he was referring to others, because otherwise he couldn't have criticized it so mercilessly and having left no answer. He said, all these interpretations of Hablullah and Hablul Nas stand totally contradictory to the interpretation which we have just presented. This is in a nutshell what he is saying. أعوذ بالله من